This is a new session for us. And so this is also something that I hope that we can have a conversation around too, not just presenting. So we'll have the slides are nice and white text. So I have a lot of information to kind of toss at you. And I have a couple examples. And then we'll kind of go from there. So let me share my dangerous entire screen and make sure it's still going. Okay, cool. All right. I'm not going to read all the slides, and I'll share the whole slide deck with you later. There are some links on here that you might want to have on hand later. So I'll have all this stuff for you, so you don't have to take a bunch of notes or anything. But what we're kind of getting at, there's two folds to what I want to cover today, and part of it is how the syllabus is laid out, but it's also how we're inviting students into a class, right? And this is especially poignant in fully online classes. I have your faces over here on the side, so that's why I'm kind of looking to the side a little bit too. So the idea here is that we as instructors in this scenario are kind of responsible for setting the framework for equity in our classes from the first day, right? So that's kind of the approach that I'm bringing with this, right? What equity is not is it's not a bag of tricks, and it's also not a checklist. It's not like, here's the 5 things you need to do. You change these 5 things, you put these 5 things in your syllabus, and now your syllabus is equitable, right? It's not about that. Even I can have a fully accessible, equitable syllabus, and so can Tara, and so can Gabrielle, and our syllabi will look completely different from each other, and that's okay, right? A lot of it has to do with how you're getting the information to students, and are they able to digest it, right? And that can look different for different classes, for different instructors, and we'll get into some of these details here. Not equity. Seeking equality assumes that all students have the same starting point. So equity is not about equality. It's more about bringing in everybody from their starting point, right? As opposed to assuming everyone's at that same level, okay? Equity is not colorblind, and I'm bringing that into this in the sense that we want to make sure that we're not creating or looking for the barriers that we might be inadvertently creating and starting to chip away at those barriers. Coming out of this session or in any class around producing equitable content, it's not going to be perfect, right? It's going to be something that's going to evolve and change over time. Like Gabrielle said, she's taken the humanizing course a number of times. And every time you take these classes, it might be the same class. The content will even change because what we learn and how students evolve and how we interface with students evolves as well. Okay. Today, we're going to focus on the syllabi, or syllabus specifically. And again, this is coming from a point of first impressions matter, right? How the very first contact we have with the student is going to set the pace for how they view us, the respect they have for us, and how they'll interface with us for the rest of the semester. For a lot of students, not all students, that first point of contact is the syllabus. Some students never read the syllabus at all, right? So part of it is there are some tricks that we can use to kind of funnel them into the syllabus. The more useful, the more inviting, and the more equitable we make the syllabus, the more chances are they might actually read it, right? So this is kind of a double fold. As a side note, which I won't get into today, I think most of you in here know this and probably do this already. One of my favorite tricks getting students to read it is actually create a quiz about the syllabus. So they have to, actually complete the syllabus quiz before they can move on. Now, can they just keep guessing until they get it right? Sure. But maybe they'll learn something along the way, right? And so I won't spend a lot of time on this. Okay. So in applying an equity lens to your syllabus, if you want to, you can open your syllabus. If you have dual monitors or if you have a paper version of it, you can open it about it. But even if you just think about it, and I think there's a good, I think it's a good practice to even think about it and then go look at your syllabus, because what you think you've put in your syllabus and what your syllabus actually says might be two very, very different things. What has happened over time for many of us who have been teaching a long time, I've been teaching for about 20 years, is the syllabus becomes a list of rules. It's a checklist. There's all these things that have to be in there. And so I don't want students to do this. I don't want students to do that. So it becomes this list of rules of do not, do not, do not, do not. So when we go back and look at it, the idea, especially in a fully online course, and my courses tend to be asynchronous as well, is if they're reading through the syllabus, are they hearing my voice or are they seeing a list of rules? Because how I talk to my students in class, I might show a list of rules to my in-person class, but when I'm talking to them about it, I'm bringing a different sense of humor. I'm bringing more a more human side to it, right? So how can I get that into the syllabi without giving up, all the rules? So it's creating that balance of language. So does it convey anything about the culture of the class? When students are reading it, do they feel welcome and included? What's the perception of the instructor's teaching style? Is the instructor even giving you a teaching style, right? What are the attitudes towards teaching? Does the student feel comfortable approaching the instructor and asking for assistance? Are you inviting students to contact you, or are you telling them how to contact you? Because that's two different things, right? And not all of these things, I think I jumped way ahead. Not everyone has to do all of these things in their syllabi. Everyone's syllabi is different and covers a different level. So when you think about your syllabi, and this is where in the what's the culturally responsive course that Josh did this summer, you were part of that too, right, Tara? Yeah. They spend like a week and a half on this. The course that Karen and I are talking about is like a 5-week course, right? Just on the syllabus. We're talking about this in like a half an hour to an hour today, right? So we're really kind of compressing these concepts and ideas into a simple thing. So whether you have your syllabi in front of you or not, think about when you look at your syllabus or any syllabus, if someone's a first generation, take a different lens, take a different viewpoint and read through it. And if you have someone who's a first generation student, maybe this is the first college class they've ever taken, how inviting, how confident are you helping that first generation student feel, right? So going down this list, this is just different concepts. If you're requiring a bunch of technology, right? If a student has limited access to a laptop or computer, how are you conveying, like, here's all the things you need for my class, here's all the technology you need a camera, you need to use this application, you need this. Are you telling them in the syllabus how they can get help, how they can maybe check out technology, those kinds of things, right? So providing that just-in-time assistance and information at the same time you're listing, like, here's the necessities, right? Is this making sense? Questions so far? We're okay. So again, this is more of these last 2 slides especially are things that you might want to do on your own, as far as like really diving through your syllabus and thinking about it with a different lens. And that takes practice, right? And maybe it's finding some people that can help you with this lens, right? Hand it off to another instructor, hand it off to someone who teaches ESL, hand it off, especially for myself who I teach marketing, I might hand off my syllabus to someone in English. I might hand off my syllabus to someone like Tomas Carrasco, who handles ethnic studies, right? Just to get a different lens, a different viewpoint on what my syllabus might read like to somebody who's not in my class and not in my department, right? And that works for most of the classes I teach are don't have prerequisites, right? So I get students from a wide range. I get marketing students and I get Athletes, I get working professionals, it's all over the place. Okay. And this is where we're going to dive into some examples, and we'll do a lot of talking, show you a lot of little ins and outs and pictures, but making sure I didn't skip a slide. Not used to using slides in these presentations. So another way of thinking this is you're greeting your students at the front door, right? In a face-to-face class, students come in, you say hi, you check in, ask them their names, see how they're doing in the day, right? Especially in an asynchronous online class, what's the first thing they see? The top of your syllabus. Is it the SLOs? Is it just your name and a phone number? Right? So, and I'll show you an example of from my syllabus as well. So maybe having a video introduction. It could be like a 30-second like hi, introducing yourself at the top of the syllabus. I put my photo at the top. Sometimes I put my orientation video, and I'll show you what that looks like at the top. So it's not just here's a wall of text, right? I think most people, especially coming out of the pandemic, now have a homepage, or their modules as their homepage in Canvas. But some people have their syllabus as the first page, and you can do that. But again, it's kind of like, if that's your first page and it's just a wall of rules, like that's not very inviting to your class and can be very off-putting. And even if the students stay, it can cause issues. Yeah.
Do you recommend? So I started using a homepage with my picture on it and my contact information and everything. Mm-hmm. Although my contact information is also in the syllabus. But do you recommend having the homepage or making the syllabus the homepage? Because that's what I used to have, and then I was told it's good to have a homepage, and so
yeah. I recommend the homepage. And the way I look at it is it's like a mini version of the syllabus, right? My homepage is like my photo, the textbook, a little intro to the course, and the links to all the modules. That's like all I have there. Then there's a lot more information in the syllabus itself. The thing to always keep in mind with Canvas is on the mobile app. So if they're accessing on the phone, it's harder to find the homepage. So just because you have a homepage doesn't mean that that's the first thing they're going to see. So that's why I like to have that kind of.
What is the first thing that they see on the mobile app?
It's a menu, and they can choose the homepage, the modules, the syllabus, or something else.
Okay. Yeah, because I often get the sense that my students, even though repeatedly I say like it's best to access to the modules and be looking at the modules, I have a sense that most of them just go off the to-do list or something.
Yep. And so I have, and that's where that kind of syllabus quiz comes back into play, right? Mm-hmm. So if the syllabus has a due date, then it's on their to-do list, which will link back to the syllabus. Mm-hmm. And if you have a syllabus quiz, make sure you link to the syllabus from your syllabus quiz. That's a key.
Yeah, I always have a syllabus quiz, although I call it a syllabus review.
Sure. But, yeah, whatever you want to call it.
But it's not like the syllabus isn't linked in the quiz. So
yeah, and that's really easy to do.
Okay.
Just in the description, in the instructions for the quiz, you can just link to your syllabus page. Yeah. Okay, this is a big wall of text, so I'm not gonna read it all. But I'll talk about some of the things that we've just been talking about, and I'll show you some demonstration of what that looks like in my live class. This link here is a link to a quote unquote liquid syllabus. A liquid syllabus, you'll hear this term, I'm hearing it less and less. And really what a liquid syllabus is a Google site or some other website that's been used to host your syllabus. You could do the same thing I've seen people have their syllabus in Google Docs, Google Sites, Google Slides. And the benefit of doing it that way is you get to use all the features of that tool. So think about like a Google slideshow or a Google Doc. You can add images, you can kind of control the layout a little bit better. The other thing that's nice about it is, and there's pros and cons to both. The nice thing about it is it can be used for all of your classes, right? So if you teach 4 sections of the same class, you could technically have one syllabi that covers all of it, because it lives outside of Canvas. The other thing that's nice about a liquid syllabus or even a Google Doc syllabus is because it lives outside of Canvas, you could then take that link and send it to your students without opening up your Canvas class, or you can put that link inside of your catalog course, which we won't cover today, but that way students, when they're, even before they enroll in your class, could actually see your syllabus and they can get an idea of what your class is like before they dive into it, okay? The other link down here is a live link to my class. I think the syllabus is published open, so you should be able to see it, but I'll show you what it looks like on mine. So the bad thing about having, what many people don't know, is if you have your Canvas, your syllabus completely in the Canvas page, so in the syllabus tool, you can actually make it so people who are not enrolled in your class can still see that syllabus. You have to have your class published, and then you have to check a box that allows others to see that syllabus itself. I can show you those settings are. So what I do, like for this, I haven't set up my spring class yet, but for the spring class, what I'll do is I'll import all my content and I set up my syllabus first, and I unpublish all of my modules. So they're all hidden. And then I publish the class, so then I can take that syllabus link and put it out there in the world. So students can get in there, they can see the class, whether they're enrolled in the class or not, they can see the syllabus. And if they enroll, the only thing they're going to see is the syllabus. And then when I'm about ready to start the class, then I start publishing the modules and other things. So again, just, I don't recommend one or the other, just a different way of doing it. You can also embed a Google Doc into that syllabus page. So if you use a Google Doc as your syllabus, you can embed it into Canvas so it looks like a regular document inside of Canvas, but then you can also share that link without publishing your class. So just a lot of different ways of kind of doing the same thing. Let's look at these two different things and talk a little bit about design, flow, images, and how this might work on mobile. Okay. Any questions before we spiral into this? All right. The link for what, Beth?
I think there were 2 links on the previous slide.
Yeah, it's these right here. Yeah. So this. I'm going to send you the whole deck too, but this is the link to this. This is just an example of a liquid syllabi, and this is someone from a different college and this is an old syllabi, right? This is from summer 2020. But she's given a lot of us permission to use this, and I want to point out a few things. I'm not going to, being a graphic designer, I'm not going to judge design choice, but I want to talk about what this kind of, the good and bad thing about this. Okay. And again, I did web design for a living for quite a while. So I see benefits to a website. For a syllabus, what I don't like about this style, so she's got text on top of images, she uses lots of different types of images. Sometimes the white text can get hard to read over a lighter background. She's got a video, she got her teaching philosophy here in a video that kind of covers that as well. And then different pages have different pieces of content. Okay. This is where I start really hesitating on this style of syllabus. So there's a whole page which just has the student learning outcomes on it, right? My concern is especially, and what's nice about a liquid syllabus, this is a Google site. So a Google site or the syllabus tool inside of Canvas or a Google Doc is going to be responsive to the student's device, right? So it's going to reformat and look okay on a phone, on an iPad, on a big computer, on a small computer, right? So all of these things, and that's where the term liquid kind of comes from. So it'll look good on all the devices. So that's why we kind of don't get into too much extra coding, and that's why we're kind of really looking at the pages inside of Canvas, Google Docs, Google Sites, because they all do that same thing. They all work on all these devices. One of the things I don't like about this particular format is students, especially on the phone version, may not see all these buttons here, right? So by not having all the content in one long page, it can actually be harder for some students to find information. She also has the buttons down here at the bottom, but if I'm here, and let's pretend I don't see the bar over here on the left side, how do I navigate to the next part, right? I have to scroll all the way down to find the buttons to go to the grading policies, right? So again, you can design the Google site so it's all one long page. You can do that. So that would be a kind of criticism in my particular preference as far as the way this is laid out. I like the use of images. You know, she has a picture of her kissing a giraffe here. So it kind of humanizes and brings a lot of her and a lot of other culture into the syllabus, right? Even without looking at the video, even without diving in and reading very much of what's going on here, we kind of get an idea of who this person is, kind of get an idea of her attitudes, her style, and what she might bring to the class, right? A lot more than just black and white text. So that's the benefits of adding all the color, all the images, just all that stuff is good. Again, I'm not going to criticize whether I like the graphics or not. That's not the point, right? And that shouldn't be the point. I think just bringing in what you enjoy or what you value into your syllabus will help students know a little bit more of who you are, right? And that's kind of the goal here. Questions on this? So what we can't do with a Google site is we cannot embed it into Canvas, right? We can link to it outside of Canvas, but then the student has to link outside of Canvas, and now we've kind of lost them away from Canvas. Once they click out, chances are they're going to start checking their email and doing other things, right? So that's kind of like the two downsides of this style. I've seen a lot of different samples of these. Some of them are great, some of them are okay. It's really up to a preference. And I've seen people do both. And actually, if you really love this style of syllabi, I encourage you to do both, because someone who's low vision or someone who's distracted easy might find this all too much. So having a text-only version of your syllabus as well, side by side, linked to the other ones in Canvas, whatever, I think is a great solution. It's just that much more work. So it just depends on how much effort you want to put into this. I only have to create a syllabi for 1 or 2 classes a semester, so putting in extra work is not a big deal to me. If you're teaching, 5 different preps, that might be way too much, because now you're talking about 10 different syllabi to keep track of, right? The other thing I would recommend is over time is using the same syllabus and just updating it, as opposed to having version after version after version, especially with the Google sites. It's just easier. Do you do that, Gabrielle? You said you're using a Liquid Syllabus, right?
I was muted.
Right.
I didn't create one this semester.
Okay.
Too much time had gone between creating the last one and the current one. It's quite labor intensive unless you do it all the time. So I did not create one this semester.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. I was just curious. Yeah, so it kind of leans into what I'm saying, right? It's great, but it can be labor intensive. It's time consuming, all that kind of stuff. This is the sample, and let me check my settings really quick. And I'm not saying mine is great. I'm not saying mine is perfect. And let me make sure. This is the setting. So if you go into your course and go to settings, down under visibility, if you change the course settings and hit customize to syllabus to public, this is the setting that makes it so the syllabus itself is available to anyone outside the class. Now, this particular one I'm showing you is an older class, so I don't know if you'll have access to it or not, but in theory, you should. But that's the link I would just put into Banner, into Anywhere, and then anyone would have access to the class, right? Okay, so I'm going to start at the top and kind of go down through this information. And I'm always changing the order of things. I'm tweaking what's here, changing little things that are different. My homepage, just because we were talking about homepages, I had this little banner, I had the picture of the book, I have myself, and I have the links, right? So the homepage is very simple, short. The syllabus, I use the same photo. And again, I'm trying to make it so wherever they land, they see me at least in that first week, right? They see a picture of me, they see a photo of me. I have my new video that I use that I made for this semester. I have my picture down in the corner so they can see me talking about it. And what I've done is in the syllabus itself, I embedded a course orientation video. And this is one of the things I really highly recommend that everyone does for their classes. And this goes over how the course is laid out and what my expectations are for the class. I use requirements in the class. I have a pattern and a rhythm to my class. My assignments build on top of each other. So if someone's falling behind in my class, I encourage them to complete the old work first, you know, that kind of stuff. All the things that are unique to my class and how I have Canvas set up is in that course orientation video. So I embed it into the syllabus. It's also a requirement in my modules. So I have that embedded in a page with a due date. So it shows up on the student's to-do list. And I also send it out as an announcement, that same video. So I'm sending it out in 3 different places. But part of it is that they hear me, they hear who I am, they hear me talk. And I don't, just like in this session, when I'm showing a bunch of stuff, I don't read every single word on the screen. I expect them to come in and read it. So I'm giving them an overview of where they can find stuff, how this is laid out. I'm expecting them to come back in here and find it. Okay. So here's your Canvas tip that no one knows how to do. Notice I have my photo way out here to the side. I'm going to pull this out and minimize this. I want you to watch what happens. If I take my browser window and I make it smaller and it starts reformatting my syllabus, see how it moves my image into a different spot? But the image is always staying to the right side, my photo. Now this is what kind of looks like on a mobile device. And so if students wanted to navigate around, they have to click that hamburger menu up at the top up here to navigate. But what's important is this is what they're first seeing on the screen, right? So the way that you do that, because Canvas does not let you do this, and accessibility, if I use a table, it makes the content inaccessible to students with a screen reader, and it keeps the image off the page as opposed to where I want it on the side. So here's my little trick. When you put your photo in, I might need to make my screen a little bit wider here so you can see the option. And it's hidden under here. The image, let me show you how I have this. Okay, close your eyes for a second. You won't see this. Don't look. Okay, so this is what happens is I put my photo in here and I just type around it, right? And then I click on the image itself and I go to the 3 dots and I choose the justification and I align it to the right, just the photo. So I put all my text in, then I drop the photo in, and then I shove that thing to the right. You can only do this with one photo on one page. So you can't use this to lay out a whole page because it'll start messing things up a lot. But you can do it with a single image. So I really like this little trick for my syllabus. This is like the only place I do it. And if I just start reformatting things, so if I add a bunch of text in here, or I add lines, it's not going to move that image. It's just going to hang out right there. So this is one of my like cool little tricks I figured out a long time ago in Canvas. So you're welcome. You can play with that. All right, back to the actual stuff we're talking about here. Okay. What I don't have at the top here, right? So the old style of this would be, here's my email address, here's my this, here's my that. A more equitable way of putting this information out here, and we'll go back to the slides in a minute here, is I'm telling students the best way to contact me and also when I will reply to them, right? So you can email me directly, use the Canvas. I prefer the Canvas inbox, and I do my best to answer all the questions the same day, but always within 24 hours, 48 hours on weekends, right? So I'm kind of making a promise back to the students, but I'm not putting it in there as a list. I'm trying to make it in my own voice. So your sentence might be a little bit different than my sentence, and that's okay, as long as I'm conveying the same thing. Here's my preference. Here's a couple ways for you to contact me, and here's my promise on getting back to you, right? Got my photo, I got a video. I've got a little thing on here on office hours. And actually, we're going to talk about this in a little bit here too. This is my old syllabus. I'm going to go ahead and change this right now. I heard this a little while ago, and I really love it. Office hours, gone. What's an office? What are office hours for? What do our high school students know about office hours, right? What a first generation, no. Student success hours. There we go, right? So I'm able to chat on Canvas. I'm available on Zoom. I can meet you any other time, or the Canvas inbox. Why am I repeating this down here? Because students don't always read everything, right? And it's pointing it, I'm not going to put it all over the place, but it makes sense to have this down here. So I repeat it. And I choose to do that just in case someone doesn't read the top part. They might have skipped down, watched the video, and then continue on and just not even read the top part, right? So I'm giving them a little second chance of kind of my promise. There's the book, the participation, the course description, all the stuff I have to have in my syllabus, the big long checklist, which exists on our website. What doesn't exist on our website as far as what we need to include in our syllabus is this little baby right here. The course that @ONE does about equitizing your class, I swear we spent 3 weeks writing this one paragraph, right? And it's a lot of writing, a lot of introspection, and trying to get a message out to my students that hopefully conveys who I am and how I feel about them and bringing them into my class, right? So I'm putting that above all the rules and everything else in my class, right? Because I feel it's more important to them, for them to know this than all the little particulars, right? I'm going to go, and if you look at the other syllabus example, that's what this is as well, right? She's coming out of the same class that I took, right? And so it's a way of connecting, and everyone's teaching philosophy statement might look different. You can call it something different. You didn't have to be so called out as far as being a teaching philosophy, right? But it's really about what you're bringing to the course. It doesn't matter what the discipline is, right? And hopefully, and did you guys do this in the equitizing class in the summer, Tara? Yeah, it's a big part of any class that really dives into this. And like I said, this takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, but I really challenge you to think about putting some statement that's not related to grades or success, but really about connecting to the students, especially in a completely asynchronous class where the students don't get to hear you. Because then the next thing is, how much does a book cost and how can I rent it, right? Ooh, stark contrast. Let me go down a little bit more. There's something else I wanted to point out. Any questions while I do a quick scan? No, all right. Things like participation. I have online discussions. So one of the things I do is I grade as I read, as the students start freaking out because they get 5 points out of 20 because they haven't finished posting yet. So I try and spell this out in my grading. So I try and give them as much detail in here. Sorry, I turned on their reading auto reader. And let me go down here a little bit more. Consider your late policies, especially post-pandemic. I've even gotten more lenient. I also teach a lot of short classes, so my classes tend to be 8 weeks long. So students don't understand how much it piles up, right? And how much work it's going to take to do 16 weeks of work in an 8-week class. So especially at the first couple of weeks, I try and be as supportive as possible. So all of these, as much as you can put that into your syllabus, and I'm not trying to get you to change whatever your level of rigor or whatever your rules are, but just stating it in a way that's a little bit more positive, right? I've also been known to put in my syllabus in the past statements saying that I don't accept late work. In reality, I will accept late work. I just don't want them to think that from the start. So it gives me a chance to be, but I try and put it in a spin that's more positive, that's more inviting, so students at least can come ask me questions. But again, hopefully that I've achieved that at the top as we go down. There was something else in here I wanted to point out. It's okay. Questions on any of this? Okay. So we talked about how, this syllabus looks very different than this syllabus. I like this syllabus in the sense that it is completely contained inside of Canvas. So this is not a Google Doc. This is actually built inside of Canvas. So whether they're on the Canvas app, iPad, whatever, it's there, it's in the class, it stretches, it compresses. The other thing about too many images and too many videos is, if going back to this idea, let me go back to the slideshow here. Let me go back a couple. If someone has limited access to internet, they may not have high-speed internet, right? The more images, photos, videos, all that stuff that you're relying on, that might eat up their bandwidth, right? So being careful of how much stuff you're throwing at them in the syllabus, right? In a lesson plan, if they have to watch an hour-long video, that's fine. Right? But in your syllabus, be mindful of how much data you're kind of throwing at a student for something as simple as a syllabus. Okay, good. Okay. Again, coming back to the concept of what we're trying to do is remove barriers. That's the whole idea of this. We're not trying to change our grading philosophy. We're not that those are other conversations around equity, but we can add language, we can add images, we can add things that are inviting to our students and make the syllabus more equitable and remove some of those barriers to how they're going to access things, right? Students who I'm hoping to remove all and go to a zero cost textbook, but I'm not there yet. And the book that we use, I think, is $70 now in the bookstore. And so I also point out that they can rent it for $30, right? So I add those things into my syllabus so they have options, they have choice. Just having options in general can really bring that equity. So this is what we were talking about. So the next few slides are about language and how language is used in these areas. And I started talking about this already. So one way to remove barriers is through language. So these are just two different statements. And I already talked about this with the office hours. Again, holding online office hour each week, doesn't tell you when. Email me if you have questions. It doesn't tell me when, what platform, anything else. We can find another time, right? The welcoming statement, I'm going to hold online student success hours each week, this day at this time. It's going to be in Zoom. I'll be happy to arrange a different meeting time, right? Just putting in those words, be happy to arrange a different meeting time with you, other than we can find a different time, right? So just putting those little positivities out there really helps, and especially with our students coming out of bad experiences with online classes, and especially in high school, right? So kind of that post-pandemic. I have a couple of these examples in here. So course goals. Instead of just having, here's a list of specific skills that you should obtain in the course. If you're motivated enough, you'll use the skill in your daily life. Opposite, right? A little bit longer too. Below is a list of skills designed to guide you towards obtaining. Each assignment you complete in this course will contribute to your growth. Again, letting the students know that you've designed the assignments to help meet the goals, so it gives them a reason to maybe actually complete the assignments, right? So we're throwing in these little motivators to hopefully get them engaged from day one. That's what this language is about. Good. I saw you nodding during that, Tara. Any comments? Or you've seen this before too.
I have. I mean, language is really powerful, and even doing very minor changes, such as instead of saying you will do this, say we will do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my class, your class, no, say our class, so
Yep.
that they know that you're in it with them. So even really simple things go a very long way.
Absolutely. And I feel like maybe even as long as 5 or 10 years ago, there was kind of a movement to make your syllabus still fit on like a couple pages, so to condense the language that's being used. In an online class especially, students don't mind scrolling, right? That's how we use all these modern devices now, right? So having 5 lines of text versus 2 lines of text, go for it. You might even make these into a series of little video snippets, right? It could be that. You could add graphics and emojis to them if you want to. I've seen people use emojis a lot in their classes. So there's little ways that you can spice things up. Okay. This comes back into what I was talking about a little bit ago, which is Black and Hispanic students, around 25%, are adults, and are less likely than whites to be smartphone dependent. What that means is our students who need the most assistance and will benefit the most from our classes most likely don't have a laptop. They have a smartphone. They might have a Chromebook from the library that they've checked out, right? So what that means is those are all mobile platforms, are all mobile browsers. They can't install Word on their phone, right? So when you're thinking about giving assignments and projects and research assignments, I do a lot with Adobe. I almost said it. It's no longer Adobe Spark. It's now, dang it, I forgot the name of it. Adobe Express.
Express. Yeah.
Thank you. Adobe Express. I do Google Slides. I really encourage my students to use Google Slides a lot. Why? Because it works the same on every platform. They can edit it on their phone, an iPad. If some students are on Mac, and some students are on PC, and some are on a Google Chromebook, they can all do that. We do have a lot of this data from our particular students. Yeah, we do have some of that too. And what's crazy is even if the students have higher end devices, something pre-pandemic, 60% of our Canvas users were accessing their classes with a mobile device. So even if it's like not about that, one of my students who took my class 3 or 4 years ago, he's like, I love your class, but it's really hard to complete all the assignments on a phone. And I was like, yeah, I bet. So, but it made me kind of rethink, okay, maybe I can give some alternate assignments, right? Many of my assignments, I teach marketing, so I get to play with my stuff a little bit more. But I give them 2 options. And in those 2 options, sometimes it's a creative assignment versus a written assignment. So for students who are more apt to writing, or if they want to do a visual analysis, or they want to create a video, I give all those options, right? The majority of students choose the written, but many students do not. Going back to this and thinking about how they're consuming that content, right, comes back to what I was talking about, is how you're physically creating your syllabus. So when I talk about best, good, okay, needs improvement. I'm talking specifically about how the student is reading that thing. Here we're talking about the syllabus. This can attain to anything, any content in your class. The Canvas page is always going to be best because it's native inside the LMS that we're using. So as much content you can put into Canvas pages or into the assignment instructions itself, then students don't have to navigate into multiple places to find the content that they need. It's all going to be right there. Google Site or Google Doc is also good, still mobile friendly. Google Doc is almost a little preferable than a Google Site in the sense that we can embed those Google Docs into the pages. So again, the students aren't navigating outside. PDF is okay. Problem with PDFs, yes, they'll open on mobile devices, but then I've got to zoom in, scroll left, right, turn it. I have bad eyes, so I get to do a lot of this. What does that say? And so I'm reading that's not fun, right? Look at Board Docs on your phone. It's good times. And then Word or on the Mac side pages, whenever you're getting to a specific editing program, chances are the student doesn't have it installed. And they will have to, it may not format the way you want it to format anyway. Yes, Canvas can display a Word document inside of itself, and it causes more bandwidth. So those long Word documents, when they're embedded, causes the student to have to still download that file to their device, eating up bandwidth. They don't have unlimited data. So again, considering all these things when you're designing your content around your syllabi. We talked about this a little bit already, creating that welcome video, creating that course orientation video. Make sure you greet your students like it's the first time they're coming into class. Give a little brief orientation, try and keep it around 5 minutes. It's hard for me to keep mine at 5 minutes. I have so much I want to tell them. After 5 minutes, it's going to be out the window anyway. Send it as an announcement, add it to your module. You could even create maybe a longer video and make a play pause it around it if you know what play pause it is, right? So lots of things you can do with videos. Again, I'm going to send you this whole, I'm going to link this in there and I'll email it to you all as well. These image banks are also on our FRC website down near the bottom, but these are all image banks that are more inclusive imagery, right? So if I'm teaching food services, I might use an image like this as opposed to the first thing I find on Google. I have a lot of these kinds of images in my personal finance class, right? The difference is it's not a white guy's hand in the photo, right? That's the only difference. We use these kind of stock photos all the time. So I can find these images on Google and other places, but what's nice about these image banks is it kind of gets you thinking this direction. What's an image that I want to use in my class? There's one down here a little bit further I want to show you specifically. Go away. I don't care. Oh, like these, right? Students sitting around using a device, right? We can use these in lots of different places in our class. You drop images like these into your syllabus or into other parts of your class, it starts creating a sense of belonging for a lot of different types of people, right? So early on was kind of like, let's start removing images. Let's remove images with have any white people in it. Let's do text only images. Now we're kind of coming full circle to, as we place images in our syllabus, in our course, wherever it is, be mindful about a variety of different types of people. One of them in here is actually an image bank of folks with disabilities. So you'll have different photos in here of people on laptops of different walks of life, right? Things that when you do a Google search, I want someone using a laptop. You're not going to find that image. You might 20 or 30 pages down, but you're not going to scroll that far down, right? So using these kinds of image sources as even a starting point of what you're looking for and being mindful of the types of images that you're putting into your classes to create more inclusivity and in turn more equitable experience for students. This last one is a really big database, so it's kind of like Google Images, but they focus on bringing up more diverse subjects in your searches. So if I come up here, right, it looks like Google Images. If I type in library, I'm looking for an image of a library. My first images are all books, right? But what's that fourth image? It's not white folks, right? So what's nice about this particular Pexels database is I can still use the images for free, but it's going to bring me a more variety of people, of images into, instead of just pictures of the standard library, right? So again, hopefully getting us to think of things in a different mindset. And this works. I believe that's my last slide. Yep. I will stop sharing. And I will even stop recording.